Hi everybody, this is Greg Mortalato with Big Hammer Wines Films. I'm here today with the esteemed Dr. Rusty Gaffney of Pinophile, the Prince of Pinot. You and I are fellow Stanford grads.
That's right.
And I'm so excited to speak with you today. We had a conversation and we had a lot to talk about. We had a long conversation. So just let's jump right in. I gathered that in Orange County, you had this wine tasting group called Le Grand Cru, and a group of professionals, and you had a passion for Pinot Noir as early as the 1980s. You basically self-taught based on the experience, but through that original tasting group, you had the opportunity to taste many of the great wines of the world. So after you retired in 2002, you started writing about Pinot, and it basically became a second career. Why Pinot?
Well, it's a good question. It's just a wine that's always given me the biggest thrill. My epiphanies have all been Pinot. I was introduced to Pinot when I was a college student by a doctor collector, and he collected Burgundy, and that's how I got first introduced to it. But through the years, I dabbled in all varietals, but I just always came back to Pinot. I like Pinot for a number of reasons. One thing that stands out is that it's a wine you can enjoy on its own, and it's a wine that's superb with food, all kinds of food. There are other wines like that too. Chardonnay, for example, is good on its own, but Pinot is just, for me, more complex, more nuanced. I can find more in it. It also can give you more disappointment because it's a very tricky wine.
Heartbreak grape.
It's heartbreak grape. When you get the right one, when it's really good, it's really good. And after you have the really good ones, you just spend a lot of time seeking that out.
There's almost a masochistic pursuit, isn't it?
It is. You spend a lot of money. There's a lot of disappointment. But the thrill of finding really good Pinot makes it worthwhile.
So you mentioned you had some epiphanies.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of them?
One that really stands out was a William Sayer and Roquefort in Pinot, 1992. And it seems like I could almost taste that wine to this day. It just was the most marvelous wine. The William Salem Pinots really set me on a course of serious interest in Pinot. Because prior to that, there really wasn't much in California to get excited about.
And that was one of the earlier producers that was really focusing on vineyard-specific production, doing similar winemaking to each vineyard and showing amazingly different results.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's probably one of the first that put the emphasis on vineyards and only did vineyard designates when the vineyard was deserving of designation. And Bert Williams had a unique talent for finding the best vineyards in Sonoma County. And that made the best wines. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have any fancy equipment. It was all basic winemaking. Start out in a garage. But it was very hands-on. And Pinot Noir seems to respond to that.
Did you taste those wines over years and time? Did they
Oh,
stand
yeah.
the test of time?
They did stand the test of time, for sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, this generation never did, because they're pretty much all gone now. Either people are breaking up or they're just too old, but it's an important part of California wine history, particularly with regard to Pinot Noir.
Do you think Cabernet, with those different vineyard sites fermented in a similar way, shows the nuance and distinction? Or do you think the Cabernet just is more monochrome?
Well, people say that Pinot Noir and Riesling are the two grapes that reflect Terroir more than any other grape, but I think people that are experienced with Cabernet and into Cabernet, they can detect differences. But maybe Pinot Noir is a little bit more reflective of vineyards.
So you had the chance to taste a lot of these great Bordeaux's and
Yeah.
other wines and top first growths, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you still chose Pinot.
Mm-hmm.
And then more specifically, you chose to focus on West Coast Pinot and some Chard.
Right.
What about Burgundy? Why didn't you want to focus on Burgundy?
Well, there are a number of factors. I've been to Burgundy. I loved it. Um, you know, I've had some of the great Burgundies. And we talked about Epiphanies, and certainly the 1990 DRC Romani Conte was.
Epiphanes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot more exposure to West Coast Pinot than Burgundy. There were a couple gentlemen in our wine tasting group who were interested in Burgundy and would occasionally host a Burgundy-focused tasting, but became a shareholder in Shalom very early on and went to their shareholder meetings and got involved with that winery. And that sort of set a course. And then came, like I said, William Salem. And I just got wrapped up in California domestic Pinot. When I started writing about Pinot, it was about the same time that Alan Meadows began the Burgundy.
This is early 2000s.
Yeah, and Alan was the expert in Burgundy, and he spoke French. He spent months in Burgundy. There's no way you could really, I wouldn't say compete, but there's no way you could do a better job than he was doing. And there was more potential and opportunity for domestic.
So you wanted to carve your niche.
Right.
Thinking about Pinot Noir and how do consumers make decisions, because it is considered the heartbreak grape. It is wildly variable from vintage to vintage, from producer to producer, from place to place. Even in your own words, you said Pinot Noir is a chameleon and changes. The wines can change dramatically after being opened for a few hours or a day. How does a consumer make sense of that? There's so many wines in the world. How does a person choose?
That's one of the reasons why you have resources like mine. I try to tell people to find a producer that you seem to like and stick with it. Don't chase scores, don't chase individual wines. You can always find a winery that one year comes up with a special wine that gets a high mid-90s score. But what you want to look for are producers who have consistency, who've shown success over time. And sure, there'll be some vintage differences, but the first thing is producer. And then the second thing, if you want to progress in terms of your knowledge, is to focus on a certain region maybe that you particularly like.
Sure.
And then you go beyond that and focus on specific vineyards, because we have enough history in California now that there are certain vineyards that stand out. It doesn't matter who the producer is, those vineyards seem to always produce better wines. So those are kind of levels of interest and education that come with time that you can develop. But over time, there's some very reliable, known producers that people can start out with and stick with, and they'll be happy.
Do you see a price point where quality Pinot begins?
Yeah, price has become a real problem because it's gotten more and more expensive. I get asked all the time by people, how can I find a good Pinot that's $20 or $25? That's a real challenge. Most of the wine I taste is premium wine, it's $60 to $90. But I try to taste the so-called supermarket wines, the lower price wines, so that I can judge what those wines have to offer and also make recommendations there. And it's become very hard to find anything that I find really typical of Pinot Noir. It isn't, those wines tend to be overlooked, and they tend to sometimes have other varietals other than Pinot in there.
You remember that Gallo
Yeah.
problem with the BC Clips wine some years ago at Languedoc?
Yeah.
They were exporting more Pinot than is planted in all of southern France. So it was clear they were blending with what they found out was Grenache and other varietals. Sure. Yeah.
Somewhere around $30–35 seems to be the point at which you can find good domestic Pinot Noir. But even in that range, it's not a sure thing.
It's unfortunate. That goes back to that heartbreak. It's heartbreak for producers, heartbreak for consumers. It's a challenge.
Well, grapes, as you know, have gotten very expensive, particularly Pinot Noir grapes.
Yes.
And that determines a lot of, particularly for small producers, what they can charge. But the fact is there's been an escalation of pricing, and wineries are charging a lot of money these days. And you wonder sometimes whether the wines are deserving of that price.
Right. A high quality Pinot Noir should command a premium, and there is a real difference. But we see that price escalation over time starting to mirror what we've seen in Bordeaux or Burgundy or Bulgari, and it's now in San Rita Hills and Sonoma.
Yeah, it's too bad because I know people have written that, for example, Burgundy, the great Burgundies, this generation will probably never have the opportunity to taste them because they've gotten so expensive. I know for me personally, around 2005, I just quit buying Burgundy because the Burgundy I wanted to buy from the top producers just got crazy expensive.
I think on our website we're offering current vintage Latache at $2,500 a bottle.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
Maybe $3,000. Yeah. It's pretty expensive for a bottle of wine.
But that's what luxury brands demand these days, and they can get it. And there are people that can't afford it and can't enjoy it, but it's a little bit of a shame in that the general consumer rarely has access to those wines.
Right. Is there great Pinot outside of San Rita Hills, Sonoma, and Alana? The West Coast?
On the West Coast?
Yeah.
The Columbia Gorge area divides Washington and Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
There are some good producers there, but most of them are on the Oregon side rather than the Washington side. Other parts of Washington is really not that suitable for Pinot. British Columbia, if you go farther north, British Columbia has some good producers, but we rarely get their wines here because of governmental.
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It'd be cost prohibitive to have to include the tax for intermediaries.
And then when you go outside of the West Coast, there are pockets in Michigan and the Finger Lakes and a few areas that do some decent Pinots, but it's not really those areas focus. Focusing on other varietals more suitable for those regions.
So you started actually a compendium of wineries that produce Pinot Noir.
Mm-hmm.
How many wineries are in that list?
There's well over 2,500 now. That's
2,500.
California and Oregon.
2,500. That's a big number. Looking at your career, you've really witnessed the evolution and the genesis of Pinot Noir on the West Coast of California, from as early as the 70s to today. And you told me that you're tasting upwards of 1,800 wines per year focused on Pinot and Chard from California and Oregon. What have you seen as the stages of evolution over these decades you've been tasting all of these wines?
Well, Number one is the advances in viticulture have made a big difference. So all the techniques that are now employed in growing of Pinot Noir can make a big, huge difference.
Who are, off the top of your head, some of the top producers that you recommend?
Oh, gee, you
Who
know,
are the most consistent people you've rated over the years?
people have asked me that. Names that come to mind right now would be Little Eye, and most of his vineyards are still on the coast, and Anderson Valley. William Salem is still a good producer, but not quite the same as it was when it was there.
Ownership has changed.
Yeah.
Production has
If you
gone up.
go down, when you're talking about Sonoma County, if you go down West Side Road, you can name off quite a few top ones, beginning with Roquio, Gary Farrell, and now Mac Roski. There's a number of good ones there. Anderson Valley is probably one of the best areas for Pinot Noir, but not as well known to most consumers. A lot of the producers of Anderson Valley Pinot Noir are not in Anderson Valley, so they don't associate the producer with the area. I happen to like some of the wines made by Gaffney from Anderson Valley. If you go farther south, the Santa Lucia Islands, of course, the Soli family and the people that work with the facilities, the Franciolis, Moore, and those are top notch. And then you go further south to the Santa Maria Valley. Palomado is one of my favorites in that area. And then Santa Rita Hills, there are a number of good producers there.
What about whole cluster? Are you a fan of
Oh, I love
this
whole
evolution?
cluster. Love whole cluster. When it's good, man, it's great because it
Adds another layer of depth.
another layer of aromatic and flavor, textural change. It's tricky though. It's a gamble.
It is.
That winemakers make because there's always a risk of green flavors, herbaceous flavors, too much tannin. Consumer doesn't like them initially because they sometimes have a lot of tannin and they're not as friendly to drink. But there are advantages to it.